Yeah, hi, my name's Adam Satadi. I'm a tutor and lecturer at University of Melbourne Film and Television School. I was invited here by Kathy Yang, who I studied with actually at Melbourne Film and Television School, and yeah, very thankful to be here today and to share any experiences with you guys and to talk as well. So yeah, thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me this morning. Where's Queenie? I've known her for 13 years, I think, wherever she is. But I was invited by Queenie to come today. Obviously, as you can see, I am in a wheelchair. So I've had a disability all my life. I had my first surgery at 3 months. So I'm really excited to share with you my experiences with the NDIS, how I navigate my physical disability. I also work in the cybersecurity industry. I'm the head of security awareness at Medibank. So, we'd love to share that experience, how I got there, because there's definitely been additional challenges, as you can imagine. So, yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam and Daisy. Now, it already sounds like we've got a lot of stories to share, and I would imagine it can take hours. But to make sure that we hear from everyone, how do we feel about maybe like taking 15 minutes each, but really just to share any thoughts, reflections, any stories around our main title, identity and culture beyond ability and disability. And in between, I may come in and prompt some questions, but we'll make sure that we got enough room and space for audience to ask questions in the end or maybe in between. How does this sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, perfect. Now, who's ready?
Easy.
I'm easy too.
Okay. Well, Daisy, you're closer to me. Would you like to kick us off?
I think Sarah's made a decision. So yes, like I said, so I was born, my family's from Hong Kong. So my mother was pregnant with me when she landed in Melbourne. This was the late 80s. Do not try and guess my age. We'll just leave it at that. Late 80s, okay? Closer to 90s. And my mother was pregnant with me. I was her fourth. And she thought I was just going to be her fourth child, going to be born healthy. I was born, and that at 3 months old, they realized that something wasn't right. My legs weren't moving. So I don't have children, but I believe that when you go into hospital, you check reflexes, like they use a little hammer. My legs were completely not moving, not reacting at all. That's when they found a tumor of a 50-cent coin. Now, I don't have cash, but it's pretty big on a 3-month-old infant. And that was, again, late 80s, Vauxhall Hospital. They found the tumor and immediately they said it had to be removed. And talking about, the theme today of connect and identity, my parents didn't really speak English. And they had an interpreter who I think was a lovely Vietnamese lady who could speak a little bit of Cantonese, probably just to say your daughter needs surgery. But, she wasn't really able to explain to my parents why I needed surgery, the impact of the surgery. Because I think, maybe and I don't know this, I was an infant, but the tumor might have been benign. There might have been other ways to treat the tumor, but it was decided then and there the tumor was going to be removed. As soon as it was removed, it basically caused spinal cord injury, damage, injury, whatever you want to call it. And so it happened on the L3, L4, she's the nurse here, my best friend, not me, but the L3, L4, I believe, is the lower spine. And obviously it's impacted my mobility, as you can see. I was walking a lot better until a few years ago. My condition just deteriorated, if this is just what happens. And so because my parents don't speak English, I've literally been translating my own doctor's appointment reports since probably age 6 or 7. And so I think in hindsight, if there was more support, I think we would have made choices a bit differently. I probably would have used the wheelchair a bit earlier. So then I wouldn't have put my body through so much trauma of walking for so long, being so ambulant. But again, you can't go back and turn back time. And I do feel for my parents because they didn't really know how to navigate my disability because they could barely speak English. So that is, the challenges of that. And I think also there's a lot of shame. So growing up, my dad has been a bit more accepting. My mother has always really been like, minimize your disability, minimize, walk as long as you can, because walking makes you less disabled than being in a wheelchair. But I don't really think it should be like that, right? I think like glasses, if you need to wear them, you should wear them. It's a mobility aid. It shouldn't be a shame thing. And even for me, because I held on to that for so long, I refused using a wheelchair for the longest time. My body was in excruciating pain all the time. And then it got, there's one thing I have been doing, and that is therapy. I have had a therapist for 13 years. And it wasn't until my therapist said, does it really change fundamentally who you are if you're standing, walking, sitting, or wheeling? And it really got to me. And obviously, my friends have been very supportive, but I will say I have lost some friends along the way. They have been like, oh, like, it's so hard to go out with you now. You're in a wheelchair. And I'm like, well, too bad, so sad. I can't change me. I can't change you. So be it, right? So that's kind of growing up in Australia. But I had all the usual kind of cultural issues as well. I remember taking just sushi to a school and people like, what the hell is that thing you're eating? And I'm like, it's sushi. The Japanese have been eating it for many centuries, but that's fine. You can judge me. So growing up, that was obviously the normal cultural issues that I experienced. And then I did school, I did uni, I did marketing at uni. I always say I should have been at L'Oreal selling lipstick. I don't know how I ended up in IT, but I did. But I've had my challenges as well. Going to university, I did get a bit of support, like, special consideration, a bit of extra time to do my exams. Not because, cognitively I couldn't do it, but they gave me extra time to go to the bathroom, come back, a quieter space, a more accessible space to do my exams. So there was definitely support. Work, my first job was at IBM. They were really good. They asked me what my requirements were, and I said, look, I drive everywhere because it's much easier than to try and catch public transport. They provided parking, no questions asked, which is phenomenal because parking in the city is very expensive. They weren't charging me, so they were really good. But 2 years into that role was made redundant. No questions asked. No, it wasn't. There was no consideration how much more difficult it was as an individual with a disability to get a job. You were a number and they cut that number. So that was my first one. And then I got a job at NAB, again, really supportive. I started off as a contractor and I'm really grateful for that general manager who said, I don't care if you're a contractor or not, you need parking, you get parking because we're here to support you. Fantastic. Again, 2 years and 8 months, that role was also made redundant. I was a coordinator in a really technical team. And the manager who signed off my redundancy literally called me a nice to have. Again, no consideration. But then at the same token, there was another colleague who was an abled Caucasian man who'd been there for 6 years. He was given an extra 3 months to find a job within NAB, but I wasn't. And I'm not saying that someone with a disability, a physical disability or hidden disabilities should be given more consideration or given anything, but I think why is it that he was given extra time and there was absolutely no empathy or compassion? Because let's face it, it is a lot harder for someone with a disability, whether it's visible or not, to get a job. Because and I've always said this, I've always gone for large organizations and corporations. And you're like, why? It's not because I like the brand and because, I like to work at NAB and Medibank. It's because they do have a lot more support. I'll put it really simply for you. If it's a small organization and they only have 2 car spots and they've given it to the CEO and the CIO, yes, you're in a wheelchair, you need it, but can they actually give it to you? And so it's not just that I want to work for large corporations, it's just they do have a lot more resource. So I had 2 redundancies before the age of 30. So that was quite difficult, but obviously you pick yourself up, you keep going, you find your people. And then in terms of like the NDIS, it took me 5 years to get on. I'm in a wheelchair, pretty visible disability, took me 5 years to get it. And the only reason I got it is because I was able to find, I believe they call it a geriatric doctor, those who focus on elderly diseases and things. But yeah, I basically sat with her for an hour and a half and she wrote the longest report. And honestly, it was a very sad report, but that's the only reason why I got it. But I don't think it should be that. Like, I think it should just be my abilities and where I need help, and where the NDIS can support me. I have been on it for about 3 years now, and I have got a lot of support. But I was just telling Queenie before, this week I was already having issues with the NDIS. So my bathroom, remember, my parents are Chinese. Having a disability is a lot of shame. So they built the house. The builder said, Would you like the house to be 1 story or double story? Double story looks better. Do you want steps in the front door or do you want it to be flat? Steps, it looks better. So I was managing a lot better on crutches. So I was walking up and down those damn stairs because my parents are like, if you can do it, you're doing it. There is no, just because you have a disability. And obviously, like I said, things have changed. I am now, permanently in a wheelchair. So we had to get the house renovated. My bathroom isn't renovated yet. So, I've gone to the NDIS, we've submitted reports. They have given me funding for the bathroom renovation, but no accommodation. There is only 1 bathroom I can use. You can't live somewhere without a bathroom, right? So it's always kind of, I feel like with the NDIS, it's always 1 step forwards, 2 steps back. And I'd love to hear your experience and everyone else's here. But yeah, I think I've done enough speaking. I'll stop here. Any questions before I hand over?
Oh yeah, I do personally have a lot of questions. I just want to make sure that we've got space for audiences to ask questions. Do we have any questions for Daisy at this time point? Well, if not, I've just got one very quick question.
Sure.
Well, I guess what I'm hearing is a lot of stigmas and challenges, support, but also a lack of support.
Yes.
But I'm also hearing a lot of resilience in yourself. You didn't really talk about yourself. What, I guess, is one of the main takeaway or tips that you will give to people with disability, just within like inner strengths?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think it's taken a long time. Remember, I was born in the 80s. Do your maths. I am a little bit older than 10 years ago. It's taken a long time to get so comfortable, but I think it's really important to be unapologetically you, because those who, you shouldn't change yourself for anyone. And so I think, but it takes a lot to be comfortable. My family are like, what do you mean you want pink hair? Like my own brother-in-law was like, why pink? And I'm like, people look at me regardless if I have pink hair or wear completely black. Like there isn't like, the people will notice me wherever I go. So I rather have something else for them to look at. And it's nice when people describe me as Daisy with the pink hair and then it's the wheelchair. Like, it's kind of nice. And last time I checked my hair color, it doesn't offend you or it doesn't hurt you. So let me be. But it's taken me a long time and it can be hurtful. I am human. Like, it is hurtful, when people aren't accepting. Like I said, I literally have friends not be accepting, and it is hurtful. But I think, being, just like going to therapy, finding ways to be resilient and really find your people. I think that's really helpful.
Thank you very much, Daisy. I do have more questions, but just making sure, can we please have Adam to share first? Is that okay? Yeah.
It'd be great to discuss more.
Sounds good.
But I'll just start basically. This is more to do with, I guess initially how I got to something I'd like to celebrate in my life, and then maybe talking about how I got there afterwards. So just to start, I'm of Indonesian, Indigenous, Scottish, and English descent. All parts of me that I wouldn't be here without. I'm originally from Darwin, Northern Territory, which is also known as Larrakia country. And today I'm grateful to be upon this land, our friend that we are sitting on today. I truly believe this land is much alive as both me and you are, and was spoken into existence by the same voice that we were. I say hello to Wurundjeri Woiwurrung and Boonwurrung land, and to all elders, brothers and sisters from before and forevermore. We are each other. All right, so also, thank you very much again to the Mindspace team for creating a place for all of us to share our time together today. To share is to tell a story and to help us understand one another as well. Being invited to share your own story is a very sacred thing, I think. It asks you to remember and to relive, to regrow happiness and heaviness inside. It asks you to distill and interpret what has passed, to see where you have landed, and to ask yourself, where is next? All wonderful things, I think, special things. Where I currently work is also one of those special things to me. That place took me in, deconstructed me, and allowed me a very privileged time to rebuild. This process is an ongoing one, though, and a very welcome one at that. A new chance at every cycle. This process began the minute I stepped foot into there as a student. Originally, I never thought I had the right to access that place I didn't believe in me and thought of myself as removed from the capabilities of those who were there. But somehow by a stroke of something, I got in. A large part of that doubt was how I viewed myself amongst the world, removed, separate, outside of others, and even myself, and mostly solo. Experiencing a separate version of navigation and communication to others. An introduction or new friendship, let alone conversation, would mostly fall apart eventually for me and take me back to square one. So that's generally where I believed I should keep myself. I accepted what I thought were my possibilities and operated the best I knew how, but only when I could. I barely sought any help. Though when I did, I felt at the time that it was put back on me. There was so much I didn't understand. I observed others in conversation and friendship as if it was an alien concept. I went through many, many circles of deep and long depression, bringing me close to dangerous and distorted places in myself I agreed to never want to go back to. But now, back to where I work now, before beginning my studies at the University of Melbourne, specifically Victorian Colleges of the Arts, Film and Television, I had this picture in my mind that it was near impossible to even attempt to apply there, or thought, what worth would it be to even study again? I'd never completed high school and failed at a short attempt at a computer science degree. I hadn't studied for 20 years or so. Academia was somewhere foreign. VCA seemed so elitist to me and a place I would walk past and only wish I could step into. Yeah, I was born in the 80s as well, so yeah. Yes, yeah. Before studying there, I worked in the arts as a freelance music producer and all-around creative collaborator, which led me to directing and shooting music videos, working with creative agencies, and the beginning of my love of cinematography. Freelance worked for me. I could control when I had capacity to interact with the world. A temporary barrier that wasn't necessarily helpful in creating a life of security and stability, but after going through a constant cycle of creating for others, some major life events, and beginning to figure out a few things about myself, I got to a point where I realized the time I have on this earth must be used wisely. I needed to decide what it was that I was going to serve, and my inner voice needed to speak. It had been bugging me for years, and it needed to speak now. The urge to speak had originally begun through singing and music, but I now needed to tell stories in a different way. I needed to find a way to translate what came from the seen and unseen and sat inside here and here onto a script ready to film. I began to search, and it happened to be that my brother worked with the partner of someone who worked at the Will and Indigenous Centre at BCA. And this man, whom I'm very thankful to this day, he took me in and began to wash away my presumptions about myself and university, provided a culturally safe space, looked over my work and listened to my story and urged me to apply to study. After some encouragement, I actually jumped at the chance. I put together an application and was given an initial interview. And that is a really incredible feeling and a testament to the importance of sharing and offering someone a nudge in the right direction. Soon after though, my application was rejected. So I got back to freelance work and aimed to apply the following year. Some weeks later, the day before orientation day though, I was left a voicemail from my soon to be first year lecturer that there'd been some mistake and that orientation day was tomorrow. I was now accepted, incredibly happy. So yes, I dropped almost everything and joined a Masters of Film and Television class of 2019. And what a beautiful bunch to study alongside. So there I was beginning my master's degree in what would be a life-changing experience. During our time, not only are we developed as filmmakers, we're also broken down on a very human level and taught to expose our inner selves with no apology. Here's what I want to say, and I'm here to present it to the world, basically. Such a cornerstone journey for an artist as we dive into places we've potentially never shared with others and spent both comfortable and uncomfortable periods of time in reflection and rebirth. Life-changing indeed, and another reflection of the cyclic journey through life, each high and low, an offering of learning and preparation for the next. So 2020 came. I just returned from a 2 weeks on cinematography workshop with university. And then we were hit with, studying under COVID lockdowns. So, being in a hands-on arts degree where in-person collaboration is key, where we're given 6 months free study extension from the university. And then amongst it all, I suffered a slight brain injury, which put me out for another 6 months of recovery. It delivered post-concussion syndrome and some ongoing loss of cognitive function. But off we went, and 2021 arrived, and our cohort attacked it. The last hurdle for me was filming in semester 2 of that year, 2021. I was deep in pre-production and planning to film across, all sorts of rural locations. And then the very last of Melbourne's snap lockdowns happened. Our grad films were cancelled, but university got into gear very quickly, offering us an option to write new films shot in either of our school's 2 studio spaces, where they would provide pre-built sets in each of them. I basically was given 2 weeks to rewrite a new grad film and redesign my entire production to suit. For whatever reason, I ended up with barely any funds, and both my actors dropped out during a week before filming. But with little support, production and crew, I was at my resources' end. But very luckily, the university had offered some bursary funding, which I applied for, which pretty much saved my production and pretty much my mental health at that state as well. It's this bursary that gave me that extra nudge, a helping hand that had a knock-on effect that would propel me to re-energize my film, support my production and my crew. Even before coming to VCA, I was just never the type to have given or think I was worth accepting something like this, or even seek it. It's with those learned experiences one builds a limitation of possibilities around oneself. So however small the amount of nudge of encouragement might be, and in many cases can be the start of a life-changing process for the person on the other end. For me, this bursary reinforced the worth of the journey I'd been on with my cohort and lecturers alike, but gave me the ability to not only recognize future opportunities, but also go for them. It proved that I could, and I take that with me for the rest of my life and instill that in people I meet, collaborate, and teach to. So now after completing the film, I was approached by the VCA's head of film at the time, who offered me a part-time tutor position at the film school to help the wave of COVID students that were coming back to study. He offered me an office, which is my first office in my whole entire life, a stable income, which up to that point I'd really never had, just due to how I interacted and dealt with the world, basically. So this role quickly developed into something far beyond that, though very, very quickly. By some way of synchronicity and to the vision of our university, VCA invested in a very large LED multimedia wall, like humongous. It's like 9 meters across, for instance. And soon after that, our film and television school head fell into the beginnings of a partnership between Vic Stream, federal government, Matchbox Pictures, NBC Universal, to develop and deliver training to a virtual production to the Victorian film industry and our school. Little did I know that what was happening until the head of school approached me one day and said, "Do you know much about virtual production? And are you interested in it?" I said, "Well, not much, but yes, very interested." His response was, "Well, we're getting it, and now you're doing it." And I said, "But I don't know what to do." To which he said, "Well, you're going to have to learn." And this began the next step of a life-changing journey that planted me in the forefront of developing the university's now launched virtual production LED volume. So just very quickly, virtual production, if you haven't heard of it, it's got to do with filming technologies that are based on 3D worlds or video plates on a huge LED wall that can either surround a whole entire half a football field or something as small as this room. So basically you can create any set that you want anywhere, anytime. So from where we began with this project in 2022, we've now built a dedicated, driven and collaborative virtual production team, which I'm so happy to be part of. I've met and developed relationships with film industry brands that I thought I would have never dreamed of ever meeting. We just came off a 2-year partnership with NAND Studios, and not only one of the originators of this technology, but also currently have the world's largest LED volume at Docklands here in Melbourne, who helped us to develop our training and curriculum as well. They hosted multiple graduating and award-winning student short films from our students, PhD research projects and art installations in their studios as well as ours. Not only did we develop something quite special, but this has also opened new opportunities with fellow universities and industry partnerships in Australia and internationally. Yeah, so to reflect on that, before film school, I'd no idea I would get to this point. You know, I was working freelance, as I was saying before. I was very protective of how I interacted with the world because, you know, there's a mixture of things having to do with how, you know, I perceive, let's just say, myself and the world around me. And that could be things from what I was previously talking about, which is, you know, bits of depression, which go into quite deep places. For me, that was getting over that kind of area of my life is quite huge. There was almost a whole year where I couldn't leave my house because of that. And then there's also extrasensory things I have to deal with as well, where, you know, I'll need time to reset myself to deal with, you know, people and interactions again. But at the same time, you know, now I'm teaching at the university, I'm lecturing, I have classes all the way from undergrad first year to masters. And, you know, I have to manage and create the tools to deal with all of that. And to be honest as well, like I've never really been someone who offers myself to go see doctors, you know, get vaccinations, go and seek help at all, really. And a part of that has to do with, you know, I guess what you're talking about and you as well, and to do with like cross-cultural understandings of how the world works. Because for me, it's not just, you know, talking and figuring out, constructing how events work. It's also, you know, the spiritual side of how the world works as well. So if I don't come across a practitioner, for instance, who doesn't have that point of view, I don't necessarily feel I want to share everything with them, because all of my experiences are strongly connected to that. So some of the help I have and healing I have got are from those cultural places and practitioners from those that practice, you know,
beautiful language when I say the whole speech. And you really feel a lot about your journey, Adam, and it sounds like you're very busy, you know, with studying different degrees and being a freelancer and also virtual production. It sounds very exciting. And for sure, like there's a lot of challenges, and there are going to be times, you know, through depression, and it almost felt like it's never ending, you know. I guess this is also for Daisy as well, so it's more like an open discussion. What are some of the things that you wish you would know like 10 or 20 years ago, or maybe during the most difficult times?
That's a really good question, because hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it?
That's right.
What I would say, if I was to give advice to my younger self, is really back yourself and learn to say no earlier. I think I've often said yes because I felt like I was missing out, or like my mum in particular has always said, you're not going to get a lot of opportunities. So say yes to everything. I've been in a relationship for 7.5 years because you're not going to find another guy. Like everything is like, you have to hold on to this job, even though it's toxic, you'll never get another job. So I think, you know, for me, it is just really backing yourself and, you know, talking about, you know, therapy and things. I wanted to share, I actually changed therapists this year. It was last year. And it was not because my previous therapist wasn't good, but I did find I always had cultural differences with him because he was, I think he was Caucasian, Australian. He was lovely and he did help me a lot throughout the year. So I started seeing him after my first redundancy. And I knew something wasn't right because I've always been pretty cheerful, happy. And then I saw my GP, and I'm really glad I'm quite open and have pretty good self-awareness. Went to my GP and I said, hey, I think something's not quite right with me. And he's like, look, I think you've got seasonal depression, quite common for like deaths, breakups, divorces, or redundancies. That's when I saw my first therapist. So when I went in, I thought I was dealing with my redundancy, losing a job, how to get a new one, but I didn't realize it was going to actually be healing a lot of childhood trauma, a lot to do with my disability, my people pleasing. But I always had, not an issue, but we always didn't click when I was talking about my family. And he's like, oh, set better boundaries. I'm like, but how? Like, we're Chinese. When they come and visit, you drop everything for them. It's just a cultural thing. And now that I've switched therapists, she is from, I think she's Singaporean Chinese background. It's just been a different level of understanding. So that's been very helpful. So I would say that as well. Like, don't be afraid to switch. I think you have to be careful not doctor shopping either. Like, you finding the therapist that tells you what you want to hear. But I think it's also important to realize if you click with that person, and, you know, I have my GP to thank. The first therapist I saw, he said, it's like a first date. Tell me what you think you would vibe with. And at that point, I said male, because, again, growing up, my whole family's all female. So I've got 3 sisters, my mum. So I said, I like a male therapist. He's like, my GP's like, do you like tough love or do you like soft and gentle? I'm like, can we go in between? So yeah, I think that's the thing. Have good self-awareness, back yourself, learn to say no. And I think it's just good to remind ourselves we've got options. Yeah.
Sure.
Anything to add?
Sure. Yeah, what I would tell myself back then is you're saying, look, I think I really liked what you were saying, Queenie, about before about, you know, healing doesn't happen alone, you know, and I spent a lot of time, many years alone, thinking that I just had to take care of it myself. You know, you can not waste, but you can trial through many years trying to, you know, maintain this version of yourself. But at the end of the day, you know, you can spend a good decade, if you don't find help, you know, going around in circles, and they can be very damaging circles to yourself and to people around you. So yeah, like, for instance, like, I'm 44 this year, and it took me a long time to get where I was. All this stability now, like, this is the first time, and why I'm so thankful at this point in my life, I'm actually stable in terms of, you know, job security, mental health security as well. You know, back then, yeah, you know, I would dip into some, you know, very, very dark places that, you know, I never want to go again, basically. And, you know, that would trigger all sorts of events in my mind, in my life, that would, you know, make me want to say, for instance, you know, not hang around my friends anymore. And, you know, a lot of that stuff was, yeah, just spending too much time alone, you know, in a circle of thoughts. So basically, you know, if you get caught in some kind of, you know, cycle that's unhealthy, I really urge you, and I urge my younger self, you know, to speak and to find others, because it's not worth trying to take the world on by yourself. The weight is way too much on your shoulders, and you know, when you reach that point of, you know, the end of your human ability, basically, you know, people can reach out in all sorts of directions that sometimes can be unhealthy, and then sometimes can be healthy. So yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. That was very insightful, and, you know, with the spiritual part, and also how, you know, sometimes we do need the time to do some self-reflection, but also other time we need a bit of deconstruction, but that can take a really long time and sometimes go down in the wrong way. So yeah, I'm just wondering if we have any questions in the audience that I'd like to ask. No? Okay. It's a quick time. Just one last question before I let you go and grab some food. You know, you all really talked about, you know, seeking out for help, but sometimes that can be difficult. And a lot of times it is about spending time with ourselves. Just 1 or 2 tips for self-care.
Is it bad if I say shopping?
Therapy, right?
It's such therapy. I swear I'm happier because I go shopping a lot. I've got 7 racks of clothes at home for a reason. No. I think growing up, I think because it was so difficult for me to go out. When I got my license, I was out all the time. I had to prove that I could go out. I had friends. I was like extroverted. Everything's, you know, I had to be out. Because I felt like staying home was a bit of a prison, because my mum wouldn't take me out. I couldn't walk to a bus stop, couldn't jump on a bus. There wasn't an Uber then, okay? I might have taken a taxi once or twice, very expensive. But I think now that I'm older, I think it is important to recharge yourself, to reflect. and to just really, you know, do things that really make you happy, whatever that is. And as long as it doesn't hurt anyone, I think it's important. Yeah. So that's, yeah, shopping.
Yes.
What's yours?
Oh, look, shopping's definitely good as well, for sure. But no, like, for me, there's a couple things. I think it's really important to find, you know, if you describe it broadly, like your safe spaces and safe processes that help you set yourself up every day, basically. And whether that's open, you know, waking up early in the morning ahead of everyone else. So for instance, I'll always get to university earlier. You know, usually start at 9, I'll get there at 8 or just before 8 because I need that time to process, you know, how I intake information and how I learn things. If I'm sitting with other lecturers and we're talking about, you know, curriculum design, or we're talking about, you know, how to develop classes, for instance, sometimes I'll be there talking to them and the way that they're communicating with, their voice will disappear and everything around them will enhance. So I have to figure out ways to manage how I intake information and retain it, and then retain it for myself later to intake in. So, you know, it does mean that, you know, I have to spend extra hours working sometimes, but for me, this is, you know, a really successful thing. And then also, another thing for me, just jumping back into the spiritual side of stuff, because it's as important as all this other stuff as well, from my point of view, is, you know, when I get too caught up in the cycles of what I'd call, you know, everyday life, and I get disconnected from what I'd call, you know, the eternal kind of journey, where there's things bigger than you that have begun way before you were here and will keep going after you leave as well. And that's, you know, ancestral stuff, etc. Once I start losing grip of that, you know, I can start getting a bit, let's just say, unbalanced. So for me to hold on to that cultural responsibility is a very big thing as well. And they're the two main things that help me maintain myself. Yeah.
Thank you very much, both practical and spiritual. Very philosophical. Now, last chance, do we have any questions in the crowd? If not, can we please give them a round of applause? Thank you very much for your experience. And also, can we please give our 3 incredible translators who's been very busy at the background. Thank you. You're all a very important part of this event.